News of the day. Every story starts with a script, a shovel, and this shovel's probably good for shoveling bullshit. That's also defending the city. The shield, personal protection, know your neighbors, have food stores, and only then the sword. Today's story is about Junkety Pete, lived in Fairbanks, Alaska. Grew up there. His father came up early in the pipeline and kind of left him behind. And Junkety Pete was always collecting junk. He had more junk than he could handle. And musical instruments. He had a flatbed tow truck combination thing with 100 shovels and rakes and other implements of destruction on it, and he would cruise around Fairbanks to the dumpster sites where they had a reuse platform, a county public reuse platform near the dumpsters, and other trades and deals. And Junkety Pete was getting evicted every year. First met him when he was in an abandoned house several lots over from my place on Noya Slough, College, Alaska. Junkety Pete moved into this place, actually lived there several years, and he would have a row of pots and pans in the ceiling, go through the stick, and you could play a song. Tick, 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 tick. Stored up so much stuff, but then he found a truckload of ice cream. He scored his dream. It was wintertime, it wasn't gonna thaw out. He had a semi-load of ice cream. Little squares, little gallon squares, all different types. He stacked them up around this abandoned house for another layer of insulation. And as the winter went through, he would be eating it. He would have a big cup of coffee and a big slab of vanilla ice cream in the morning to go with his coffee. And when spring came, he was so sad. He was gonna lose all that ice cream. It was gonna melt. He wanted to eat it all. He tried to make a deal with somebody to use his freezer for the summer, a big grocery store freezer. He got kicked out of one place and he went to the pipe storage yard north of Fairbanks. Huge area, several hundred acres of gravel where they had cleared the forest and stored half of the pipeline, the other half in Valdez. It was stacked up, and they welded 40-foot pieces into 80-foot pieces in this yard and then hauled it off during the construction of the pipeline. This big vast area, he set up a circle of these huge plywood shipping containers, 4 feet by 8 feet by 8 feet plywood boxes. Mostly military families moving their stuff to Alaska. So they had a big circle of these and then started stashing junk in all the containers and in between. And when he finally did get kicked out of there, the pipeline company came and said, "What are you doing here? You've got a little city. Circle the wagons." So half his stuff was actually in these container units, and so half of his move that time was just hooking his little tow truck up to one of these grates and haul it off, and going down the road with this big plywood box dangling behind his truck. That was Junkety Pete. He always had junk. At one time I told him, don't be making deals with everybody else that you're going to follow through on later. and stop charging more for 2x4s that have nails in them. But they're worth more, he says. Yes, in a time of desperate need when no more nails are being manufactured after the apocalypse, maybe somebody will pay you more for a 2x4 with nails in it. They're worth less because it takes work to take the nails out. Anyway, I said, and don't be making deals with those bikers. They're serious folks. They don't take later for an answer. And I don't know what happened, but they tied up his long, flowing red hair that he was so proud of, tied it in a bun, and towed him around the parking lot behind one of the motorcycles. And then cut his hair off. Next time I see him, his hair's all sticking up because he had his huge, beautiful red flowing hair cut off. Junkety Pete, always making deals. He played music. He'd make musical instruments out of all this junk. He gets a gig at a regular bar and goes there and sets up a bunch of crazy instruments. Starts playing a song. Everybody loves it. Somebody comes up and gives him a couple bucks for a tip. And so he got a tip jar. And so he made some steady money. And then pretty soon he started talking about his tip jar more than he was playing music. Until the owner of the place said, hey man, you're here talking about your tip jar and not playing music. Nobody likes that, so you're out of here. So that was his gig. Junkety Pete playing at the bar. Good musician, made up stuff all the time. Oh, real creative, not very structured. Junkety Pete. Just thinking of him as I'm moving a whole bunch of musical instruments. Getting him set up for another. He put out a flyer advertising himself as not being future shocked, and that he could quell rebellions and start revolutions and all this stuff. So always, the story about Junkety Pete just reminds us all to finish the transaction, pay your workers on the day of their work, and as always, news of the day, be honest and open in all your dealings, but never show your wealth or your weapons.